check to make sure we are live. Okay, great. Fantastic. All right. What happened here? Okay. All right. Oops. Just double check again. Just double check again. Okay. We are live. Let's get this guitar and we will chant something. Jai, jai. Let's see, what are we going to chant? Short. Okay, let's do Radhika Stava again. Okay. Make sure it's tuned. It seems to be off. Yep. Okay, we're on. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavadaya Hey Jaya Jaya Madhavadaya Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavadaya Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavadaya Damodaro-rati Vardhanaveshe Adinaskuta Vrinda Vipileshe Damodaro-rati Vardhanaveshe Adinaskuta Vrinda Vipileshe Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavadaya Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavadaya Shabanu Yandi Nasashileke Anita Saki Guna Ramitavi Shake Shabanandari Nalshashileke Lalita Saki Guna Ramitavi Shake Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavadaya Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavadaya Charite. Komuram Korumai Karunabate Sanaka Sanatana Vanita Charite. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavadayate. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavadayate. Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite. Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavadayate. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavadayate. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Gold, Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravatikacharya also tell us that the Shimad, His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Shai Makunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Maturadam Ki Jai, Jagannath Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Gurun Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharni Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Dejadarni. So let me read this prayer by Srila Rupa Goswami, our Acharya. We are Rupa Nugas. O Radha, O glories unto you, O glories unto you, beloved of Madhava, object of worship for all the young girls of Gokula. You dress yourself in such a way as to increase Lord Damodar's love and attachment for you. You are the controller of Vrindavan, the pleasure groves of Lord Hari. You are a new moon arisen from the ocean of King Vrishabhanu. You are the friend of Lalita, and your wonderful qualities, friendliness, kindness, and faithfulness to Krishna endear you to Vishaka. You are an ocean of compassion, and your divine characteristics are described by the four Kumaras, Sanaka, Sanatan, Sananda, and Sanat Kumara. Radha, please be merciful to me. So, we're going to go on and continue our study of the Sri Isopanisad. Yesterday, we just started text 4 during our Sunday Feast program, which was also broadcast. So, let's share the screen first. Om Ganata Madanda Shah Gananjana Shalakya Chakshuru Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shigadave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances under the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So let's continue with the Isopanisad. as I mentioned, yesterday we started, just this one window keeps opening. Anyway, it's all right. Okay, yesterday we started with Mantra 4, and we just spent the whole class on Mantra 4. That is just the translation of Mantra 4. That's how much information there is, which I'm going to summarize. I'm going to read Mantra 4 again, and then we'll summarize the meaning, and then we'll go on to the Prabhupada's purport. Ane jade kam manaso javiho nayananteva hapnuvan purvan narshat todbhavatonyan atyeti tishtat tasminapo matarishva dudati. And so this translation is, although fixed in his abode, the personality of Godhead is swifter than the mind and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him, although in one place he controls those who supply the air and rain. He surpasses all in excellence. And as I mentioned, I spent a half an hour just with this verse, and we didn't go to the purport yesterday. And if you're interested in that explanation, you can look at yesterday's class. It's on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, which is bkgoswami. But in any case, we're going to go on with Srila Prabhupada's purport, which explains pretty much the same thing I explained yesterday. Through mental speculation, even the greatest philosopher cannot know the Supreme Lord, who is the absolute personality of Godhead. He can be known only by his devotees through his mercy. Of course, the Bhagavad Gita says, Bhakti Mama Vijanati Yavanas Chasmi Tatvata. I can be known only by devotion. And why is that? Because Krishna reserves the right, Nam Prakasha Sarvasya Yogamaya Samavrita, of not exposing himself to people who don't like him. I mean, it's an example I give many, many times, that if we have people who don't like us, then we don't expose ourselves to them. I mean, recently I got an email from someone who really doesn't like me and just wants me to say something so they can criticize me. Okay. Dear Maharaj, I would like to no, that's not what it said. But we know the intention. How do we know the intention? Not in everyone's heart. But I knew the intention anyways, I got the email and I didn't respond, because if I responded one way or another, it would be more criticism and a fight. And if I don't respond, it's criticism. And if I do respond, it's criticism. But there's less criticism if I don't respond. So Krishna is the same way, understands that there's less criticism if he doesn't respond or show himself. Okay? Just like in the morning, we're reading this very nice section of the Srimad Bhagavatam dealing with, what is it dealing with? The washerman or the dyer of clothes who refused to give clothes to Krishna. So just the fact that Krishna asked him for clothes caused him to be more envious. And he said, no clothes for you, you little coward boy. And then what happened? Krishna just took his little hand and removed this guy's head. So, so in other words, Krishna doesn't want people who don't like him to see him. That's all. Simple thing. And Krishna's so expert, he can keep himself from being seen. And Krishna has not given anyone his email address except for the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But very few people call him up at that number. In the Brahma Samhita 534 is stated, this is actually what I talked about last night. It is stated that even if a non-devotee philosopher travels through space at the speed of the wind or the mind for hundreds of millions of years, he will still find the absolute truth is far, far away from him. So the speed of mind is faster than the speed of light, which we asked everybody last night. Nobody knew the speed of light is 186,000 miles a second. And there's many stars that are many light years away. What's a light year? A light year is the amount of space that light travels within a year's time. So you figure that 186,000 miles in a second times 60 seconds in a minute times 60 minutes in an hour times 24 hours in a day times 365, and that's how many miles, and I did not do the calculation. That's how many miles light travels in a year. So even if you travel at that speed, or travel the speed of the mind, which is much faster, it's almost instantaneous, you cannot approach Krishna. Aham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritas. And Krishna covers you with his energy, which is difficult to overcome. The Brahma Samhita 537 further describes that the absolute personality of Godhead has his transcendental abode known as Goloka, where he remains and engages in his pastimes, yet by his inconceivable potencies, he can simultaneously reach every part of his creative energy, not only by his potencies, but by his expansions, such as Mahavishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Shiradakshay Vishnu, or by his devotees. In the Vishnu Purana, his potencies are compared to the heat and light that emanate from a fire. Although situated in one place, a fire can distribute its light and heat for some distance. Similarly, the absolute personality of Godhead, although fixed in his transcendental abode, can diffuse its different energies everywhere. And so he's doing everything through his energies. He doesn't have to mess with this material world, because not only his energies, but his devotees, known as demigods, are controlling various aspects of this material world. And they're all, as we mentioned last night, first-class servants of the Lord. They know what is to be done before even being asked to be done. Although his energies are innumerable, they can divide into three principal categories. You may remember this from our studies in Krishna book and Bhagavad Gita. Internal potency, marginal potency, and the external potency. So internal is the spiritual energy of the Lord. External is dull matter that has no consciousness. And marginal is ourselves, our soul. Our souls. Sorry, not our soul, our souls. Who can go and associate either with the external potency or the internal potency. When we associate with the external potency, we become as dull as a gull, in other words, as a rock. And when we associate with the internal potency, we get Satchidananda, eternity, bliss, and knowledge. There are hundreds and millions of subheadings to each of these categories. Wow. In other words, there's energies, sub-energies, sub-sub-energies, millions and hundreds of millions. The dominating demigods who are empowered to control are all classified within the marginal potency of the absolute person. In other words, they're all jiva souls, like you, like me, who got that position because they were devotees, maybe not pure devotees, but they're responsible people. Lesser living beings, including humans, also belong to the Lord's marginal potency. Even the cockroach belongs to the Lord's marginal potency. So they're jiva souls, exactly the same as you and me, and they have all their desires. Wow. The material world is a creation of the Lord's external potency, and the spiritual sky where the kingdom of God is situated is the manifestation of his internal or spiritual potency. Thus, the different energies of the Lord are present everywhere. Although the Lord and his energies are non-different, one should not mistake these energies for the supreme truth. In other words, the sunshine is not the same as the sun. Sunshine comes from the sun, but the sunshine cannot substitute for the sun. If you simply have the sunshine, of course you wouldn't have the sunshine without the sun, but anyway. You can't produce the sun from the sunshine, but you can produce the sunshine from the sun. Just like you can produce yogurt from milk, but you cannot produce milk from yogurt. That's really good. Nor should one wrongly consider that the Supreme Lord is distributed everywhere impersonally, or that he loses his personal existence. In other words, everything is God, and therefore God has become divided or watered down. Just like if you have salt and you put it in water, it gets watered down. Men are accustomed to reaching conclusions according to their capacity for understanding, but the Supreme Lord is not subject to our limited capacity for understanding. It is for this reason that the Upanishads warn us that no one can approach the Lord by his own limited potency. Yeah. I mean, that's obvious. I mean, we are right now immersed in Krishna's illusory energy, and we have no ability to see spirit. We can see the results of spirit, like consciousness in ourselves and consciousness in other living entities. But we cannot even see the soul, so what to speak of seeing Krishna or understanding Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, text 2, the Lord says that not even the great rishis and suras can know him. Rishis means great sages. Suras mean godly people. And what to speak of the asuras, which means the opposite of suras, the opposite of godly people, for whom there's no question of understanding the ways of the Lord. The fourth mantra of Isopanisad very clearly suggests that the absolute truth is ultimately the absolute person. Otherwise, there would have been no need to mention so many details in support of his personal features. You know, he could remain in one place, but he also can be all over the place. So that doesn't make sense materially, but spiritually, through the Lord's energies and through the Lord's own spiritual potency, he's able to do anything. Anything. There's no limit. As we mentioned yesterday, Krishna can create an immovable object, and he can move it simultaneously. He can't move it, he can do anything. But anyway, the object is immovable, and he's moving it, and it's all happening simultaneously. How is that? I don't know, but I have faith that God can do anything he wants. Although the individual parts and parcels of the Lord's marginal potency have all the symptoms of the Lord himself, they have limited spheres of activity and therefore all limited. In other words, we as souls have the same qualities as God in small quantity. I know you've heard this before, but this is an essential aspect of our philosophy. The parts and parcels are never equal to the whole, therefore they cannot appreciate the Lord's full potency. Under the influence of material nature, foolish and ignorant living beings, that is, human beings, who are but parts and parcels of the Lord, try to conjecture about the Lord's transcendental position. Usually they try to conjecture based upon their own experience in this world. So they may think that things in this world are temporary or miserable. So let's take the opposite of that, which means to eradicate all personality and all variety, because variety in this world ultimately creates misery. Personality, individuality ultimately creates misery. Ultimately, maybe not right now. So you may take the opposite. So get rid of individuality, get rid of personality, get rid of variety. No. The opposite is spiritual personality, spiritual variety, right? But they're thinking the opposite is to get rid of something. The opposite of no money is money. Or the opposite of false money is not no money. That would be kind of stupid. So what's the opposite of Confederate money? Not Confederate. Counterfeit, sorry. Used the wrong word. What's the opposite of counterfeit money? Counterfeit means somebody printed up the money in their printing press. What's the opposite of that? The opposite of that is real money. not no money. So the opposite of these material things or material, let's say, manifestations is a spiritual manifestation. The opposite of temporary is eternal. The opposite of misery is bliss. The opposite of ignorance is what? Knowledge. Sri Isopanisad warns of the futility of trying to establish the identity of the Lord through mental speculation. You won't be able to figure it out. One should try to learn of the transcendence for the Lord himself, the supreme source of the Vedas, for the Lord alone has full knowledge of the transcendence. Every part and parcel of the complete whole is endowed with some particular energy to act according to the Lord's will. That's us. We have some energy, the ability to act according to the Lord's will or not act according to the Lord's will. The opposite of not acting according to the Lord's will is acting according to the Lord's will. Easy to understand. When the part and parcel living entity forgets his particular activities under the Lord's will, he is considered to be in Maya, or illusion. Thus, from the very beginning, Sri Isopanisad warns us to be very careful to play the part designated for us by the Lord. This does not mean that the individual soul has no initiative of his own. Because he is part and parcel of the Lord, he must partake of the initiative of the Lord as well. In other words, we have free will, choice, limited. That's right. Limited, your free will or choice. Like I may decide to do something, but I may not have the ability or the money or the strength or anything necessary, or the help to do it. I mean, for example, I may decide I want to fly in the air. I don't have the ability. I mean, in an airplane. But without an airplane and this body, I can't do it. But if Krishna decides to fly in the air, he's Aptakama. He can fly in the air in a second. He can do anything. Because he's not under any laws or rules. We're under the laws of nature. We're limited. There's the law of gravity, the law of action and reaction, and there's so many scientific laws that we're under because Krishna has written those laws. But Krishna doesn't have to follow those laws. When a person properly utilizes his initiative or active nature with intelligence and understanding that everything is the Lord's potency, he can revive his original consciousness. There it is, original consciousness, which is lost due to association with Maya, the external energy. We lost it. In other words, lost it means we had it before. And we lost. Too bad. Got to get it back. All power is obtained from the Lord, therefore each particular power must be utilized to execute the will of the Lord, not otherwise. In other words, whatever talents we have, whatever strength we have, whatever anything we have, money we have, is meant to be used for Krishna. And of course, that was the first verse in the Isopanisad. Ishavashamidam sarvam yatkancha jagatam jagatena chakshena punjara bhagradha kashasvedanam. What is that? The Lord is the owner of everything. We've gone through this before. Owns you, your body, your wife, your husband, everything. And everything's meant to be used for him. The Lord can be known by one who has adopted such a submissive service attitude. And Prabhupada would often say that all of us are serving, but we may not be serving Krishna, because our nature is to serve. So instead of serving Krishna, we will be serving our tongue, or serving our children, or serving society, but we're all servants. Servants of our lust, our anger, our greed. Perfect knowledge means knowing the Lord and all his features, knowing his potencies, and knowing how these potencies work by his will. This is very interesting. That's called Sambandha Gyan, perfect knowledge. Knowing the Lord in all of his features, his different types of expansions, Swamsa, Vivinamsa, etc., and Maya, and knowing his potencies. We mentioned Krishna has three potencies: material, spiritual, and marginal, and there's many divisions amongst them. And knowing how these potencies work by his will, by his desire. That's all. That's pretty easy. If he wants something, it happens, because these potencies are persons. They're not just impersonal potencies. Just like if you see electricity coming from the socket in the wall is basically impersonal in one way. Doesn't have any ability to decide anything, right? As far as I know, the electricity maybe it does, but as far as I know, it doesn't. But Krishna's energies are headed up by persons. There is Durga, who's the personification of the material energy. She's a person. She's Vaishnavi. Vaishnavi means a lady who is a Vaishnava. Got it? And there's Srimati Radharani, the original Adi Shakti of the Lord. Okay? She's also Vaishnavi. So all these persons are persons. and they voluntarily, out of love, are serving Krishna. That's what it means to be a Vaishnava or Vaishnavi. These matters are described by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, and which is the essence of all the Upanishads. Bhagavad Gita is called the Gita Upanishad. So that's mantra 4, which we finished today. Mantra 5 is quite interesting. It gives us some apparent contradictions. And we can see the Lord is beyond all contradictions. I'll read it, and then we'll do the word-by-word synonyms and translation. Tadejati, tannajati, tadurye tadvantake, tadantarasya sarvasya, taddu sarvasya sarvasya bhayataha. Tat, the Supreme Lord, Ajati walks, tat he, not Ajati walks, tat he, dure far away, tat he, u also, antake very near, tat he, anta within, asha of this, sarvasha of all, tat he, u also sarvasha of all, asha of this, vayataha external to. Now just by reading the word-by-word synonyms, you'll see there's a lot of contradictions. There are apparent contradictions. That God walks and doesn't walk. He's far away, he's near, he's inside, he's outside. The Supreme Lord walks and does not walk. He is far away, but he's very near as well. He's within everything, and yet he's outside of everything. Wow. Real contradictions. So let's hear Prabhupada's purport. How is it that someone walks and does not walk? He's far away and very near as well. I mean, this is Krishna and his energies again, and Krishna's in expansions again. That's pretty easy to understand. That some of his expansions, he's inside of everything, and in his original form of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, he's not inside everything. And Krishna's inside everything in his energy, and in Goloka Vrindavan he's not inside of, he's outside of everything. He's outside of the material world, never comes in contact with Maya. So in the same way, he's far away, and he's very near as well. And the Supreme Lord walks in some of his incarnation, and his energies, the energies may or may not walk. So here, purport. Here is a description of the Supreme Lord's transcendental activities executed by his inconceivable potencies, his energies. The contradictions given here prove the inconceivable potencies of the Lord. He walks, and he does not walk. Ordinarily, if someone could walk, it is illogical to say that he cannot walk. But in reference to God, such a contradiction simply serves to indicate his inconceivable power. In other words, God is beyond understanding or the utilization of philosophy in which we see that you can't really have contradictions. You can't have something that is this, that exists, and it's not this simultaneously. But with God, both things can be there simultaneously. He's God. There's no rules. God doesn't have to, as we mentioned last night, God doesn't have to follow the rules of logic, any sort of rule. Not even the law of gravity. With our limited fund of knowledge, we cannot accommodate such contradictions, and therefore we conceive of the Lord in terms of our limiting powers of understanding. For example, the impersonalist philosophers of the Mayavada school. Mayavada school means those who think that the Lord's body is material and all variety is illusion. And ultimately everything's one, but somehow we're an illusion. Of course, the illusion wouldn't be the one, but anyway. Except only the Lord's impersonal activities reject his personal feature. But the members of the Bhagavad school, adopting the perfect conception of the Lord, accept his inconceivable potencies and thus understand that he is both personal and impersonal. The Bhagavatas know that without inconceivable potencies, there can be no meaning to the words Supreme Lord. So in other words, the Lord walks when he is manifesting his personal form, and the expansion of his personal form, the energies, well, the Brahmajyoti, for example, doesn't walk. I mean, many of his energies are persons. I mean, they're all ultimately headed up by persons, and they do walk. But many of the manifestations of the energies are not personal, and they don't walk. We should not take it for granted that because we cannot see God with our eyes, the Lord has no personal existence. Sri Isopanisad refutes this argument by declaring that the Lord is far away, but very near also. This is what I explained previously. The abode of the Lord, that means his planet, is beyond the material sky, and we have no means to measure even this material sky. In other words, the extent of the universe, the extent of all the universes, we don't even know how to do that. If the material sky extends so far, then what to speak of the spiritual sky, which is altogether beyond it. That the spiritual sky is situated far, far away from the material universe is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. But despite the Lord's being so far away, he can at once, within less than a second, descend before us with a speed swifter than that of the mind of wind. He can also run so swiftly that no one can surpass him. This has already been described in the previous verse. In other words, we talked about the speed of mind, the speed of light, and Krishna can do things instantaneously. Interesting. Yet when the personality of God had come before us, we neglect him. Such foolish negligence is condemned by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, 9:11, that the fools deride him, avajananti mudha, considering him a mortal being. He is not a mortal being, nor does he come before us with a body produced of material nature, like our body. There are many so-called scholars who contend that the Lord descends in a body made of matter, just like an ordinary living being. Prakritim swamadistaya sambhavama yapamaya. Krishna appears by his own energy. But not knowing his inconceivable power, such foolish men place the Lord on an equal level with ordinary men. Because he is full of inconceivable potencies, God can accept our service through any sort of medium, and he can convert his different potencies according to his own will. And now one of the examples Prabhupada gives in this respect is that Krishna can change matter to spirit and spirit to matter. What's an example of that? The food that we offer to Krishna. We may take food, let's say rice, dal, broccoli, whatever you're offering to Krishna, and it's just matter. That's it. and you offer it to Krishna, and Krishna turns it into what? Prasadam. And prasadam is spiritual. It's really interesting. So that can be done by Krishna. Krishna can manifest himself in the form of the deities. He can empower matter to act spiritually. That's amazing. And the example Prabhupada gives, insofar as the deity worship is concerned, the post office can empower a box to act in such a way that you can drop your letter in that box, and it's the same as dropping it into the post office. That's the example Prabhupada often gave in regard to deity worship. So the post office can do that. If an ordinary post office can do that, Krishna can do that with his energy, because he owns and controls all the energies absolutely. And so Krishna can manifest himself as the deity in stone or wood or metal, or even the deity of the mind, which is subtle matter. So when you think of Krishna, you picture Krishna in your mind and your consciousness, Krishna appears. Or, what to speak of, what? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna can manifest himself in sound vibration. There's a mundane tongue that is vibrating. And somehow or other Krishna enables that person, who must be a devotee, to manifest spiritual sound. That's quite incredible. That's why, what is that? Why? That's why one actually has to follow strictly Krishna consciousness. You know, the four regular principles, chant their rounds, because without doing that, you will not manifest spiritual sound from your tongue. Your tongue will just manifest material sound vibration. That's why Prabhupada said the holy name has to be heard from the lips of a pure devotee. Prabhupada defined a pure devotee is basically, in this context, one who is following completely, purely. Non-believers argue either that the Lord cannot incarnate himself at all, or that if he does so, he descends in a form of material energy. They're limiting God. These arguments are nullified if we accept the existence of the Lord's inconceivable potencies. In other words, the Lord can do anything he wants through his potencies or directly. It's not, you can't say, or you can say anything you want, but you'll be wrong if you say that the Lord can't do something. He can't do it. It's impossible. Like, give the example of the Brahmin who thought that Krishna could not put an elephant through the eye of a needle. Krishna could do that. What's the problem? I can't do it. You can't do it. And we're thinking because we can't do it, he can't do it. Then we will understand that even if the Lord appears before us in the form of the material energy, it is quite possible for him to convert this energy into spiritual energy. That's what I just said about the deities. And Prabhupada is going to say the same thing later on in this paragraph. Since the source of the energies is one and the same, the energies can be utilized according to the will of their source. For example, the Lord can appear in the form of the Archa Vigraha, a deity supposedly made of earth, stone, or wood. Well, it's nice. I actually said what Prabhupada was going to say. Deity forms, although engraved from wood, stone, or other matter, are not idols as the iconoclasts contend. But, here's the thing, but the deities need to be installed by devotees. Devotees can cause or call Krishna to appear. Krishna will not appear if someone who is not his devotee calls him. Why should he come? Why should he come if you're not a devotee? You know, Krishna's not controlled by some magic, mystical mantra. You think you chant some mantra like some witch, some spell, and then Krishna's force. There's not like the genie in the Aladdin's lamp that you just rub Aladdin's lamp and poof, a genie comes out. Krishna's not a machine. He's a person. He can say, I'm not coming. That person may be chanting my name or trying to chant my name. I ain't going to appear before him because that person's a rascal. That's important to understand. In our present state of imperfect material existence, we cannot see the Supreme Lord due to imperfect vision. Yet those devotees who want to see him by means of material vision are favored by the Lord, who appears in a so-called material form to accept his devotee service. That's in reference to the deities. Those who are not yet purified can go and take darshan of the deities. One should not think that such devotees are in the lowest stage of devotional service or worshipping an idol. They are factually worshipping the Lord, who has agreed to appear before them in an approachable way. Nor is the archa form, that means the deity form, fashioned according to the whims of the worshiper. You can't just make up any other form. Like the Hebrews in the Bible, who were escaping from Egypt, they made a form of the golden calf and they began to worship it. That's just like, what? Invention. I can make a form of anything and worship, but it's not going to have any spiritual potency. This form is eternally existent with all paraphernalia. This can be actually felt by a sincere devotee, but not by an atheist. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 11, the Lord says that how he treats his devotee depends on the devotee's degree of surrender. That's yeyatamam prapajante tam sadaiva pajamiyam. As a devotee approaches me, I reciprocate in the same way, Krishna says. The Lord reserves the right not to reveal himself to anyone and everyone, but to show himself only to those souls who surrender unto him. Thus, for the surrendered soul, he is always within reach, whereas for the unsurrendered soul, he is far, far away and cannot be approached. That's another way of understanding far, far away and close by. Very, very interesting. So, what does surrender mean? Surrender means loving Krishna. What? Serving Krishna voluntarily. Anukulyena Krishnanushilana Bhakti. Voluntarily serving Krishna the way he wants to and doing it with devotion and being active, not just dreaming in your mind. One day I will serve Krishna when I surrender to him. That is not surrender. Let's see how much more we have here. Let's see if we can finish this paragraph. 2 words. In this connection, 2 words revealed in the scriptures often apply to the Lord. Saguna with qualities and nirguna without qualities are very important. The word saguna does not imply that when the Lord appears with perceivable qualities, he must take on a material form and be subject to the laws of material nature, because Krishna has spiritual qualities. They're not only material qualities, but they're spiritual qualities. For him, there's no difference between the material and spiritual energies because he is the source of all energies. As the controller of all energies, he cannot at any time be under their influence, as we are. Like we're the employees of the firm and he is the boss. The material energy works according to his direction. Therefore, he can use that energy for his purposes without being influenced by any of the qualities of that energy. In this sense, he is nirguna, which means without material qualities, without qualities. Nor does the Lord become a formless entity at any time. For ultimately, he is the eternal form, the primeval Lord. His impersonal aspect, or Brahman effulgence, means Brahman, the spiritual effulgence around his head, is but the glow of his personal rays, just as the sun rays are the glow of the sun god. Pretty easy to understand. Okay, so now we are ready to take questions. And we will allow you to unmute yourselves. Okay, so a lot of philosophy today. So who wants to? It looks like Pran Govinda has the first question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada.
Jai, Pran Govinda ki jai. So, what's up?
Maharaj, I mean, I have some understanding, but I like to hear a little more because deep down in my heart, there's still a little bit not clear about the spiritualized versus Satchidananda from an angle of, as you were explaining, or Prabhupada also gave, the application sense and compositional sense. So, what is composed with material marble, now a deity, and we call Satchidananda form.
Yeah.
Can you can you give little more like how it was a marble material composition?
And
It
it,
made
and it, and it still has some qualities of not it, but the deity still has some of the, externally, some of the qualities, but the marble is non-different than Krishna. The deity is non-different than Krishna. So Krishna appears through that energy, and Krishna is transforming that energy. I mean, just like you would take food, or let's talk about something else other than the deity, because that's a very sensitive subject matter. Let's say you have a piece of a sweet ball, which is made from sugar. The original ISKCON sweet balls we used to be made from sugar and powdered milk and, let's see, sugar and powdered milk. That's about it. And sometimes a banana. I mean, those are the Simply Wonderfuls. Oh my God, Simply Wonderfuls. Not to give you diabetes. So anyway, so let's say you have sugar and powdered milk, which is material, and you offer it to Krishna, and it becomes spiritualized. But at least to our eyes, it still maintains some of the qualities of sugar and milk, but it's spiritualized. I mean, it's inconceivable. It's spiritualized because if you eat a lot of those Simply Wonderfuls, you're going to get diabetes, or get sick, or have high blood sugar, or hyperglycemia, or something like that.
Maharaj,
So
Satchidananda is eternally Satchidananda.
that's right. No, but Krishna can change matter to spirit and spirit to matter. He's God. He can do anything he wants, and he can change it in such a way that it may still retain some of the qualities of the matter that it was before.
Mm.
Like the sweet ball is prasadam, completely spiritual, yet it still retains some of the qualities that may you have some health problems if you eat too many.
But for the
Prabhupada,
ultimate
Prabhupada
reality,
said oh, butter. I forgot about butter. Someone just posted the butter. I forgot about it. So Prabhupada said many stalwarts have fallen down in the name of Mahaprasadam. So how could you fall down in the name of something spiritual?
mm,
That's interesting. I mean, it's actually interesting. A prasadam is completely spiritual, but by Krishna's arrangement, it still maintains some of the quality. But Krishna could arrange it differently if he wanted to. Thank you for asking the question. It's gotten me to think about it. I mean, for example, you have these great devotees like the Pandavas who went back to the spiritual world and their bodies were transformed. Dhruva Maharaj's body was transformed to complete without any material, external, apparent qualities.
that is true.
Gopakumar's body was transformed. But Krishna, in this world, he sometimes transforms things in such a way that they still maintain some of the qualities of the previous manifestation. How he does it, he's God. I mean, don't ask me how Krishna does things. He's God. He just wants it, and it
Mm.
happens. Yeah, I don't know the technology behind it. If I did, I would be pretty advanced.
You are advanced, Maharaj. But Maharaj, can I confirm with you, like if I think that in the material domain, I need to go beyond the form to perceive the substance. In the spiritual domain or Suddha Sattva platform, the form is the substance and is also the way to the substance for me.
No, but the if when you're talking about prasadam of the deity, you don't have to go beyond the form. The form is Krishna. You don't
Why?
look at the you
Why
don't
did?
look at the deity and go beyond the form. Oh my God, or look at the prasadam and go beyond. But somehow or other, Krishna it maintains some of the prasadam maintains some of the qualities, but it's completely spiritual. I mean, that's the only way I can answer it.
That's good. I was just wondering, Maharaj, when Prabhupada went to Kurukshetra, I was told that he said there is so many statues, not one deity. And I'm still like, there are many statues of Krishna in Kurukshetra, but not one deity yet.
Yeah, because you can make a statue, and if you don't have a devotee and do the installation, then Krishna doesn't appear.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to make a statue and say, "Oh, it's a deity." Krishna has to come down at the behest of his pure devotee. And if someone's not even a devotee, I mean, being a devotee means being devoted, not just someone who's trying to make money. Like they, I'm just going to end with a story because I got to ask other people to ask questions. So, like, I told the story many times that I was in Prabhupada's room and the devotees came to Prabhupada and told Prabhupada how they visited a temple. And in that temple, the devotees were not properly respected. And the devotees were describing the deity to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, "There is no deity in that temple." And the devotees kept saying to Prabhupada, "But we saw the deity, Prabhupada." And Prabhupada said, "You heard what I said. There is no deity." And then Prabhupada gave the example of using the Shalagram Shila to crack nuts with, which is a Bengali saying, which
Yes.
you're probably familiar with. So, in other words, if you don't properly have the right attitude to the deity, Krishna can go. He can leave. Then you have statue, not Krishna. Okay, I got to ask. Other people have to have the opportunity.
But
This is
Maharaj, where is this story?
not, other people have to have the opportunity. I can't let you just ask all the questions.
I know, but I am your favorite. No, I'm just kidding. Just,
No, 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 no. You gotta let me. There's time a limitation on time. So sorry about that. You have to accept it in faith. All right. So here's a question. It's said that Krishna does not come under the influence of energies. So how do we understand that he sometimes comes under the influence of Yogamaya and he forgets that he's God because he wants to be under the influence? Krishna is not controlled by Yogamaya. Krishna allows himself to, just like you may have some energy. Just like, oh, all right, let me try to give an example. In this material world, uh, you may, all right, let's say you may have some children and you allow yourself to be controlled by your children to play with them. Okay, that's a good example. You're still the parent. You're still more powerful than the children, but just to have fun, you allow yourself to do that. You let your hair down. Here's another one. Anu. As Krishna's name is so potent, will still have its effect. As Prabhupada says, Krishna and his name are the same. Yes, but for Krishna's name to give you pure love of God, Krishna's name has to be heard from the lips of a pure devotee. Otherwise, the best you can do is Namabash if you're not taking it from the lips of a devotee. It's still spiritual, but it's not going to be effective in the same way. It'll be effective, but not as effective in giving you pure devotional service. Then at times, due to our karma, we are not able to follow right. Wait a second. Due to our karma, we are not able to follow it? No, due to our desires. Karma doesn't control a devotee. If you're chanting, you have your desires. If you don't follow the regular principles, that is your choice. You have chosen. You are responsible. The devil did not make you do it. The material desires did not make you do it. The situation did not. You got to take full responsibility as a devotee. Don't blame this karma or your previous conditioning. And here's one last question. Hare Krishna. Krishna leaves the deities. Does Krishna return? The devotee starts the worship nicely. Krishna can do whatever he wants. Yeah. If Krishna comes, he can go. He can goes, he can come. So here's another one. He said, festivals to fundraise for overenthusiastic projects taking the name of the pleasure of the deities. That comes under the using Shalagram Shila to break nuts. It may be using the deities to collect. As a means to collect. That's also not a good idea. It's not that, well, we install the deities because that's the only way the people give money. That's the only way, Shoo. That's like Shalagram Shila to break nuts with. But if a project is not practical and you're using the deity's name to do it, and it's not going to, if it's not going to expand the glories of the glories of Krishna consciousness, then, or just going to be for your own personal sense pleasure or maintenance, then that is using the Shalagram Shila to break nuts with, crack nuts, and just displaying the deities to make money, sending Krishna to work every day. Instead of you getting off your behind and working, you want Krishna to go to work. No, you should work. Why should Krishna have to go to the office for you? Yeah, isn't it? Yeah. Krishna, it's time for you to go to work. I'm going to stay home and just relax. And you bring home the moolah, the money, and I will just relax, Krishna. Okay, we got to end now. It is time. Thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada.